What I'm about to show you are the accounts of two ex-members of the Connecting Consciousness organization, namely Amora Steve Melchizedek and Toby Hall. They are the two people, and I confirm the only two persons Simon Parkes has ever taken to court. And he won. He won, as will be revealed, on technicalities. Simon claimed it was the BBC that he was suing. This, as revealed recently on my channel, was untrue and a smoking gun in respect to the trustworthiness of this individual. They state that we have no record of any legal claim being issued by Simon Parkes against the BBC. I must make a disclaimer here. The following materials of accounts I will share in video and in documental format were obtained from what's been shared with me that has been found in the public domain on the internet. I am not presenting the following as proof or evidence of any of the claims therein. I do not know nor have contact with Amora or Toby, and I have not in any way been influenced by anyone to share this information. I am not claiming to believe in anything presented in this information, and I ask for the viewer to take into account and to discern for themselves the truth from this information within this video and from publicly available information regarding this case. Some of this information, particularly the video piece, I have been informed was attempted by the original creators to be removed off of the internet. I am told, although I cannot confirm this, in reaction to threats from the individual that it reports to. I did not find these materials on any website, social media, or private communication with the two individuals whom originally created and released this information.
I've actually perhaps been in one of these ceremonies where they eat a young girl and we feast on sacrificial flesh. And on the right, the creature who wants me to call him Dad says, "This is your world, your place in this world. This is your heritage and culture. What resides within also resides without." And that means what lives inside the earth is also genetically printed outside the earth. That's a reptilian DNA.
The document goes on to say, it was around August 2015 when my attention was drawn to the expulsion of a Swedish member of Connecting Consciousness. This was noteworthy because it was one of the few occasions that Simon directly engaged in the operation of the group. He delivered a message saying that following complaints from some group members, he had to take action to protect group members from TB and his practices. I had noticed that TB had hitherto been a popular member on the forum, and his opinion was sought quite widely. Nowhere in the message streams had there been any indication of a Connecting Consciousness member expressing any complaint or issue around any interaction with TB, either publicly within the forum or in any private communication. Some other members also found this eviction to be strange and asked what had occurred. Usually, Simon responded personally and said that he would reply privately to anyone seeking more detail. I believe that some people made the inquiry but never received a response from Simon. After the expulsion of TB from the Connecting Consciousness group, there was not one member that passed any comment expressing that they had any untoward dealings with him, nor was there any voice of support for him being removed from the group. My instinct was that something very unfair was playing out in this eviction maneuver, and so I made direct contact with TB to establish what had genuinely occurred. He told me that he was a shamanic practitioner and that some Connecting Consciousness group members had approached him for certain shamanic treatments, and they had facilitated some healings for them in a professional capacity. Now, Simon had taken issue with him that he had charged for such services. TB disclosed that his rates for the work that he had conducted were in line with what other shamanic practitioners would charge, and that he believed Simon's real grouse was that firstly, it was a fee greater than Simon was charging for his own main line of revenue, that being the Skype soul readings, and that secondly, he had been approached to handle some matters that Simon had been ineffective in remedying himself. Within a few weeks of having that conversation, I myself was approached by a client who lived in North America. She asked me for some help because although Simon had taken some action on her behalf to rid her of what he had interpreted as a case of jinn possession, she still felt the interfering presence of that negative energy. When I did a remote shamanic intervention on her behalf, I could see that there was indeed a dark entity around her, and was also able to observe that the problem had not been wholly resolved by what Simon had instigated, because it was not a clean extraction that he had performed. The entity was one that had numerous tentacle-like protuberances, and these had previously been woven into the auric field and subtle energy bodies of the client. Whatever method of extraction that Simon Parks had invoked, it appeared like an act of butchery had taken place. The entity had literally been ripped from her, this leaving some of the tentacles still embedded within her field, and the entity was hanging around looking for an opportunity to retrieve them. I applied shamanic remedy to the situation, which resulted in the clean extraction of this negative debris and allowed for the entity to depart and never again interfere with the client. It is my professional opinion that Simon likely invoked some of his reptilian connections in an attempt to clear the entity attachment from this lady, and that this was not the most appropriate way to deal with the situation, as reptilians lack empathy for any party involved, and they just resort to violent means on a default basis. One of Simon's claims is that he is working constantly to assist humanity, and that his extraterrestrial friends have the ability to foresee Earth-based events, and that they have access to secrets held by global politicians and economists. He chooses to share these tidbits publicly so that truth is in the wider audience. He also claims that his biological mother and grandfather were both prominently involved with both American and British intelligence services and were tied to the Illuminati. He further claims that he witnessed Illuminati workings and that he disliked what he saw to the extent that he extends his own magical abilities to heal those who have suffered various traumas at the hands of Illuminati practices. The Illuminati are also known by the collective term the Cabal, or the New World Order, and are effectively an underground self-determined government that uses heads of open governments as puppets. For sure, the victims of black magic and ritual abuse conducted by the society require specialist help to recover. Simon also claims that he can command a jinn entity to leave an afflicted party. To be able to do such a thing requires a capacity to operate within the concentrated magical application. In early August 2015, Simon claimed that the CERN particle accelerator in Geneva, Switzerland, was being prepared for a Cabal-initiated experiment, which he says was designed to tear a hole in the fabric of space-time, with a view to creating a portal through which extraterrestrial beings could potentially invade Earth. He specifically put out a request for people to send him their energy, and that he would be able to use it effectively in an attempt to save the world. Whether or not you give any credence to this claim or believe him to be purely delusional and suffering from a messianic complex, do you see that he asked a large audience of their own free will to give him their energy? This is an issue that I shall return to later. In September 2015, I ran the Psychic Protection Workshop in Birchover, Derbyshire. Having booked 3 separate bunkhouse buildings on the farm, this to accommodate everyone who told me they would be attending. The majority had paid a deposit that enabled me to secure the space. However, within a week of that event, 10 people, all Connecting Consciousness members, withdrew, 4 of which only notified me on the day that the course was due to begin. One of these people told me that they were being beleaguered by chaotic energies. One man told me that he had got as far as getting into his car to set off, and he had discovered that all 4 tyres had been slashed on his vehicle. Another one said that his girlfriend was in a suicidal state. Yet another man had withdrawn because he was devastated by some personal allegations that had been levelled at him, and he needed to clear that matter in order to get back to his centre. One lady called Nikki Griffiths, who had openly acknowledged having a strong reptilian alliance, withdrew on the day of the workshop, and cited that she had accepted some administrative position with Simon and that she felt to attend would be a conflict of interests. A lady called K.E. had felt such a pull on a soul level that she ought to attend the psychic defense workshop, flew into London from her home in Texas, and met up with me and my then partner in Pewsey, Wiltshire, the day prior to the workshop commencing. Whilst driving her up to the venue in Derbyshire, there were times that I apologised for breaking off in our conversations because I felt something was amiss and needed to call upon protective forces. I would best describe what was occurring as the steering feeling very light, as if driving upon black ice, and I could feel the car being buffeted as though strong gales were striking the vehicle. The weather, however, was good and was not contributing to this phenomenon that was being felt. Peculiarly, on each occasion that I was discerning this energetic interference at play, I received incoming text messages on my mobile phone, and later, when I pulled off the motorway, I discovered that those messages were notifications from those people that were themselves encountering challenging circumstances which had led to them withdrawing from attending the workshop. The people that ultimately did attend the workshop were Richard from Manchester, Jean from Leeds, Steve from Wiltshire, and Vidya from Cambridge. The aforementioned were the non-connected consciousness contingents. Then K from Texas, S from Newcastle, Roxy from Leeds, R from Notts, H from London, and myself were all connecting consciousness group members. The day after the arrival, we commenced the work of the course. I recall that the atmosphere in the room was heavy, and despite a number of attempts to steer all efforts towards the actual methods of psychic protection that could be employed, I noticed how the female connecting consciousness members in particular were leading conversations into other areas. I felt into what was occurring and discerned that an attempted hijacking of events by a targeted and a collaborative force that was seeking to prevent the actual psychic defense techniques from being taught and implemented. I called everyone's attention and said, I'm aware of interference around these teachings reaching you. I'm also aware that others have been subjected into the influence of chaotic forces to prevent them from being here. The fact that you arrived here safely and that we determined to do so means that you hold valuable reasons for being here. Can you each please tell me what it was specifically that you experienced that drew you to sign up to this workshop? S volunteered to start. She gave some personal biography details that she felt was relevant to her capacity in comprehending the experience she had to detail, and then told of Simon Parks arriving on a psychic level to her when she was sleeping, and he just started having sex with her. There was no hello, no introduction, or any conversation. She would have liked to have written this off simply as a dream. However, this was something that was recurrent on different nights. She knew it was beyond a dream level experience because she actually found him as a person to be physically repulsive. She wanted to know how he kept getting to her and be able to put a stop to it. Roxy spoke next. She began with,
You too, huh? He tried it on with me whilst I was sleeping too. Bold as brass he was, there, bare-ass naked. I told him to fuck off. I could handle him. For me, what was worse was he had a load of Draco reptilians with him, and they took some fighting off. They don't like people who don't submit. Parksy has even showed up in his reptilian form too. He doesn't take no for an answer easily, even if you tell him face to face in 3D reality. I'm actually glad Nikki pulled out of coming here, because she is seriously contracting with the reptilians, and I would have found it difficult getting to sleep in the same dorm as her with everything she attracts. I stayed at her place one night. It was scary what was around her. I just want to help other people that are more vulnerable than me with all this stuff.
Then R spoke.
He comes across all nice when you meet him, when he's talking to you, but on energy levels, he's trying to find your weak spot. I don't know how he does it, but he taps into your sexual energy. He can get into my head and press my buttons. He makes me mad. Me and my husband, we never had any problems in bed until I joined Connection Consciousness. But it's like Simon can place himself in the way of our relationships just to be malicious. He manipulates your healing gifts. I've had to give up Reiki sessions. because he was coming between me and my ability to work with my clients. I just couldn't connect with them like I used to. I want to be my normal self again.
Kay spoke next.
I really relate to what S said. Simon comes into your dreams and engages in unconsensual sex, except it isn't a dream, and he doesn't care that you find him ugly or repulsive. Whatever he does to your energy field is powerful, and it is difficult to reconcile that even though you don't want this stuff happening, your body is acting with arousal, whilst your head and emotions are screaming at him to stop and go away. It's a head mess and generates irrational guilt. I didn't know why I had such a strong urge to be here. I just knew it was important. I can see why my soul called me here now.
I spoke next. I shared what my partner's experience had been of Simon and his response to being challenged about his nocturnal visits. I asked all the opening four ladies if Simon had appeared as himself to each of them in their dreams, and all confirmed that he had. H then contributed to the group that he had an administrative position within Project Avalon, and that he was privy to a number of different complaints in respect of Simon Parks, and he reported that other women had also spoken of sexual invasion by him whilst in the dream state, but that this was not the only area of complaint. Project Avalon is an online forum that emerged out of Project Camelot and was founded by Kerry Cassidy and Bill Ryan. It is described as a space where science and spirituality meet, and it attracts an audience that has a high incidence of New Age thinking and people that would describe themselves as experiencers of unusual phenomenon. The odds of one person being involved in the same set of circumstances for so many women is astronomical and is beyond the bounds of chance. It also highlighted for me that each person within the workshop had voluntarily joined the Connecting Consciousness group. There seemed to be a vulnerability for all parties that were open to connecting with Simon's consciousness specifically. When the round of giving why they had each attended the workshop had been completed, I discerned that of those present, R appeared to me as the one person who was most suffering currently from the circumstances that had been disclosed. It was evident to me that Simon had corded with her and that he was connected to her solar plexus chakra. There were also other cords that were hooked into her non-physical body at the rear, especially at the sacral area and the rear of her neck and at the top of the spine. I offered to conduct a tie cutting ceremony for her, which she accepted, and this was duly witnessed by other workshop attendees. R was released from much negative energy through that process, and at completion, her countenance was much lighter. She was able to smile again, and she herself registered the change as her natural energy field that had been restored. The following morning, I was guided to ask Roxy, what was going on last night? I kept being pulled out of my body into your dorm. She replied,
I was the last to go sleep in there, but not for long. I woke up and there were a dozen or so reptilian beings lurking around. I was just wondering what to do when suddenly you appeared at my side, and together we chased them away.
the remainder of the workshop, I did not feel any interfering energies present, and the various psychic defense techniques were presented without any further hindrance.
And immediately after that morning session completed, I actually went onto Facebook where this Connecting Consciousness group was being orchestrated through. I made a post outlining everything that I discovered within that meeting, and I said that I was going to withdraw from there because I could not condone any participation with it. And some people subsequently contacted me to say that they had also had these kind of psychic invasions, and other people contacted me as if to say, well, it's none of your business what Simon gets up to, and it was my choice to let the Connecting Consciousness group know what I had discovered, and then remove myself from it. Mm-hmm. At that time, I didn't feel that I needed to do anything else. because I'd let the parties know that I felt were most vulnerable at the time. Subsequently, I have discovered that some of these visitations have continued, and outside of Connecting Consciousness group even. So I feel now that there is good reason for this to be made wider knowledge.
I agree, because people are being violated and we don't know the full story. Is this being initiated by the Draco reptilians, and are they using Simon as their portal agent to do this? Or is Simon doing this sometimes on people that he targets? And does it go beyond a mere, well, maybe mere isn't the right word, a sexual violation, to be something to do with harvesting energy?
So I'm on this chair, and he's offered me this pretty young female, and I say, can I have her? Or can I have, this is really funny, or can I have the woman on the Fry's Turkish Delight advert that's on television? And he says...
As a 6-year-old boy?
Yes, yeah. And he says to me, think of her and she is yours. So I imagine her, and there she is. And she's there with a veil and everything. She's sitting on me. And without being too crude, he says, do you know what to do with her? And I say, no. He says, well, I'll enter your mind and show you what to do. So without going into horrific detail, have sex with her. It's not real, it's all holographic.
At 6 years old?
Yes. And he is instructing me how to have sex. And he says, the woman, it's awful this, isn't it? The man is there to take, the woman is there to give. And he says, the only reason that woman is put on the earth is to serve and to make replacements. That's the word he uses, make replacements. And then when we've had sex, he says, now father and son have shared a female. He said, would you like to eat her? And I say, no, because I'm only 6 now. I say, no, if she's going to have a baby, and if it grows, I want it to look like me. And he says, no, she is not manifest. She is only in our minds. And he says, would you like to feast on flesh? And I say, no, I don't really want to do that. Why do I have to do that? And he says, you don't have to do it. But if you do it, we will become father and son. And I said, but I thought we were father and son. In our law, that's the reptilian law, father must feast on vanquished flesh with his son before you are. So I eat this holographic Fry's Turkish Delight lady who's screaming. It's really realistic, and my teeth aren't made for it. But then he says, enough feasting, and she just vanishes.
One of the things that I subsequently discovered after leaving the group was that there was another member that was in there at the time who had been offering shamanic assistance to people, and that a dispute arose between he and Simon, and obviously wanting to get a greater understanding of the real purpose behind connecting consciousness. I had some theories, but I wanted to get to the truth of the matter. We decided that we would actually do some work together in order to gain more information. And this other shaman related to me what he had discovered, and he was telling me that Simon was in cahoots, more so with the Draconis reptilians than the mantids, certainly in relation to the operation of the group, and that it wasn't just his presence that could be directed to impact people on an energetic level. So this means that there were a number of entities, including what Simon himself was able to do with his abilities through his soul connection with the Draco reptilians. Now, the theory that I had was that Simon was actually using the Connecting Consciousness group to gather a sort of psychic army. And what led me to this conclusion was when one of his coordinators, and at that time was one of his partners, even though he was married.
Around this time, Simon took on an assistant called Fran Barlow, with whom he also entered a relationship with, and she effectively began to administratively manage the Connecting Consciousness group. One of the first actions in that role was to directly ask members to post what star lineage they were affiliated to.
And she asked a question in the group, and she was inviting members of the group to state what their affiliation was with the different star races. And then what happened was that this created tension between people that were affiliated to the different star races. There was animosity from people feeling connected with the Dracos towards ones that were connected with the Pleiadians.
Whether or not said parties had any genuine connection with reptilian, Pleiadian, or any other non-human races is a matter of conjecture.
Ultimately, where this group of people that had an allegiance to the Draco reptilians would go, we don't know. However, this other shaman that I spoke to, he was saying that through these psychic invasions, a hook was placed into the sacral chakra of the women, and that they were then hot wiring the Kundalini channel straight to the pineal gland. And what this was doing was, for the woman, it gave them a sensation of being perpetually sexually aroused, and the natural conduit of the Kundalini flow was being diverted. So it totally bypassed the heart chakra, any feelings of love. It kept everything at the low vibrational energy. But in this hot wire link, energy was being sucked off. And that energy was then being taken off planet and was being used as food by Draco reptilians, in the same way that we hear that they can feed off the vibration of fear. We know that there's a lot going on in the world which people claim is orchestrated by that. So that family group.
On return home, my first action was to write a post on the Connecting Consciousness page explaining what had been revealed to me and that I was leaving the group, as I could not support such insidious attacks upon the feminine. I said that I believed a substantial number of group members were vulnerable to various means of psychic interference from Simon, and that if anyone believed or suspected that they were afflicted, I recommended that they consult an independent shamanic practitioner. Simon, for a change, did actually make a personal response to my post. However, he did not deny any of what I had reported had happened. He did not claim that it wasn't him that was responsible, but instead he complained that I had charged money for my weekend's teaching, which incidentally had included associated accommodation costs, said that he didn't understand why I was being nasty to him, and showed his annoyance that I had been doing healing work out in Oslo rather than sending him my energy during whatever he was doing regarding the CERN particle accelerator back in August of 2015. Those members of Connecting Consciousness that had actually attended my workshop were not approached and asked for their accounts and impressions of the weekend's unfoldment. Instead, they were summarily removed from the group and no reason was provided to them. I understand that those who added comments to the Connecting Consciousness post in favour of hearing more about what I revealed had the same fate in terms of being removed from the group without explanation. Simon, realising that having removed myself from his group and also blocking him on Facebook because I completely wanted to disassociate from his energy and the way in which he orchestrated it, could not message me directly. And so, as an attempt to play mind games with me, instead of emailing me, and he still had my email address to do this, he wrote an email instead to my partner and claimed that he was monitoring all my messages and sending them to his solicitor to pursue any slander case that could be made. Since he chose to deliver this message via my partner, I believe he was attempting to apply pressure to her, hoping she would ask me to stop revealing his traits, and also to suggest that she was still accessible to him and therefore still vulnerable to his nefarious attentions. Further, as a devious attempt on Simon Parks' part to obtain comment by me on anything that could not be substantiated, and therefore would give him some potentially litigious material as leverage to keep me quiet, he requested that one of his trusted Connected Consciousness members to contact me on Skype with a view to drawing me into a discussion. This man was an Italian called Luciano Pellegrini. I told him that there was nothing to discuss as far as I was concerned. Simon had badly misbehaved, was a predator of women's energies, and those vulnerable to his approaches needed to be warned. I subsequently had a very sore solar plexus for around 10 days following my disclosures. When I did a shamanic journey to investigate the cause, it was clear that Simon had primarily set up the Connecting Consciousness group with the intention of discovering these souls who had either reptilian or mantid connections, and especially those who were psychically gifted. It was for the purpose of creating his own psychic army. I had unwittingly, by my exposure of Simon's proclivities, exposed myself to the attentions of that army. However, to my surprise, his own energy was absent at that time, likely because he was in fear of being exposed more widely. However, the energy signature of Fran Barlow was very strong at that time within the frequencies that assailed me. Around this time, one of the ladies that had expressed a desire to attend my workshop but had pulled out last minute was RM, a psychic and tarot reader from Newcastle upon Tyne, and she wanted to explain why. She told me that as a woman of a certain age, her libido had declined due to natural hormonal changes. But connecting with Simon had resulted in her sexual energies becoming resurgent. She knew that the process by which this happened was not ethical, but she was enjoying the sexual feelings again, so she wasn't going to complain. I asked her if she felt any duty towards other women that were unhappy with such attention, and she replied that while she sympathised with those who found such attention unpleasant, it wasn't her problem to get involved with. Following my alert regarding the hazards on a psychic level of being involved with Connecting Consciousness, and particularly urging caution to any women about contact with Simon due to his tendencies of abusing from the astral plane, I received a number of messages, not only from people that had suffered astral sexual advances, but from others that were concerned about his practice in other areas. Simon was described as having a modus operandi in which he openly flirted with women that had approached him for help or soul readings. He used flattery and claims of knowing the other party from a previous lifetime in order to engage them on an egoic level. In face-to-face conversation, including Skype sessions, he often was described as coming across quite charming. He regularly re-engaged with women he was interested in by text messages and was complimentary of them, but later his messages moved away from a professional level. There were those that were seeking help or healing who revealed a pattern whereby an initial paid-for consultation would take place with Simon, but promised a follow-up sessions to cure what he said he could, were never forthcoming. There were also those that Simon had developed a personal rapport with, to the point where he was inviting meetups and having encouraged some emotional attachment from them, would then fail to answer the subsequent calls and messages from those women. JD from America contacted me and told of having involvement on the healing platform of Project Avalon. She told me that a number of Project Avalon members had reported various issues with Simon Parks, and that she had even had to offer assistance in this capacity to other Project Avalon members who was on the healing team. and that the source of his problems were attributed directly to participation in the Connected Consciousness Facebook group. She herself had, for personal reasons, left the group and then gone back when family matters had been attended to. And she described her absence from its energies as being like taking a holiday. After she had read my revelations on my reason for leaving the group, she made the choice to remove herself permanently. And on that occasion, also, she found it benefited her overall mood and energy levels by being out of it. Furthermore, she told me that Simon had been in a psychic romantic involvement with a woman who was a member of Project Avalon, and that when he had dumped her, this had attracted a number of allegations against him that were quite unsavory. Around this time, I spoke more in depth with TB, another shamanic practitioner, and I was seeking to discover the true purpose of what Connecting Consciousness Group was about, and in particular, what Simon's range of activities were outside of the ordinary third dimensional operation. We both engaged in shamanic journeys, and here is what we discovered. TB told me that my suspicions about Simon having a larger reptilian than mantid element to his persona were correct. Like me, he had wanted to know what Simon was doing with all the sexual energy that he appeared to be able to stimulate in women, even in those that were aghast at how and in the manner of which he was approaching them. TB said that Simon was a puppet figure, that he was also a dark magician, and that he knew techniques of engaging people against their will, and that he was being used to engage the attention of other women. Working alongside Simon were a team of reptilian entities, and they were actually the ones doing the damage. Whilst the women were focused upon the astral sex act, the reptilians were hotwiring the sacral chakra to the base of the pineal gland. For myself, in my journey, I focused upon one lady's complaint, who I shall refer to as PF, that she had never met Simon, nor had a Skype session with him, but had merely watched one of his YouTube videos, and then discovered that he was making unwelcome visits into her dreams. What I discovered was that Simon was proficient in the art of psionic magic.
I had some people get in touch with me in relation to some of the Dreamtime scenarios that we've already mentioned, that have Simon Parkes figuring within them, and they hadn't joined Connecting Consciousness. The only thing that connected them was the fact that they had watched some videos that he put up on YouTube. So on behalf of them, I did some shamanic investigation and gave some remedy. And the shamanic investigation showed me that there are certain magical techniques which have been known to military in a number of countries, and it's called psionic magic, and this is magic that is conducted less by ritual but by pure thought transmission and embedding. And so the video that seemed to have had this impact on, certainly on the first person that contacted me in relation to it, had got a hook that had gone into their etheric field, purely from watching this video.
This is a method used by some military intelligence teams and was developed as an extension of the Wilhelm Reich exploration of orgone energy and mind programming experiments. Simon had placed overlays on some of his YouTube videos that he embedded within them certain hooks which a vulnerable person would get physically caught upon. They would then attract him like a spider to its prey that gets caught in a web. When I investigated this further, often the cue to alert the uninitiated in occult matters was when in his videos the domestic cat of Simon would jump into his lap. Cats are very sensitive to energy fields and energy flows. Simon would operate from his own sacral center, whilst using his mind to embed these psionic traps in the videos. And at that point, his energy signature would change. Cats like to bathe in subtle energy fields and soak them up. Hence, the cat would jump into his lap at that point in order to siphon off a little for itself. Around this time, Roxy contacted me and told me of an ex-lover of Simon called C. He arranged for me to message this woman. Her concern, it turns out, was not for herself, but for her daughter, who was a man, and she reported that he had been sending her underage daughter inappropriate messages. Her term was that he had been sexting her. It then goes on in this document to detail, I won't go through them all, lots of other people contacting Amora and sharing their experiences of being psychically attacked or abused. There's many here. I'm going through these pages. Also, there's instances here of women, contacting to ask how to get in touch with Simon because after initiating some work upon her and then flying over to the UK to see him in person, he was not accepting her calls or answering the messages she left him. Wow, that's being stood up, isn't it? I mean, I shouldn't chuckle. This stuff, all these accounts, if they're all true, are quite serious stuff.
There's only so many times that someone can hear the same set of circumstances related before they begin to think, there has to be something in this. And Fran was certainly one partner that Simon had at the time that I met him. It was actually at a birthday party for her that he hosted at her address, where we physically met.
Okay. And this Fran, she confronted him and he admitted, and is this right then, they agreed to do a psychic exorcism?
Well, my understanding is that initially she rebutted the disclosures that I made in this video earlier. But she must have heard more people come forward and express the same concerns. And so, as I understand it, she actually challenged him to say, you have to do something. And it's at that time, rather than taking personal responsibility for this tendency that he has for molesting people on a psychic level, he began to blame it onto the other soul parts that are non-human and the relationships that he has, particularly with the figure that he calls Dad, which is the Draco reptilian. And so, in effect, what he has done is admit that there's certainly some entity possession occurring.
Came across something interesting on Simon Park's website, but obviously he's deleted it now because this is not here. But look at this ridiculous gobshite. Dad, out of my life forever. Carry on down. A very big thank you to Fran for making me aware of how the Draco I called Dad had been using me to attack people and women in particular. I am really pleased to say that I have expelled him from my life, and I'm very sorry for any harm or distress that he has caused others using me. What a nice man. So basically what he's saying is Daddy did it. So all these attacks on women, everything he's being accused of, just wash it away, sweep it away, because Daddy did it.
That's approaching him feeling that they can get some spiritual guidance or receive some kind of healing on an etheric level. Would they really be approaching him if they were fully aware of this entity's ability to work through it.
In interviews, he has mentioned a number of times what happens from the astral or psychic level is not something that can be governed within our legal system. So he is free to do what he wants there. His reptilian aspects, therefore, see no reason to take accountability for abusing women in a way that no prosecution could be forthcoming. In one of his early interviews, he has disdain for his wife getting upset for him claiming to have sex with the alien being for up to 4 times a year, because in his eyes, fourth dimensional beings and above don't count towards hurting his spouse's feelings.
My wife, you know, found out about it and was very unhappy, clearly. That caused a few problems.
Well, was she jealous?
Yes. But it's not on a human level, so I don't see it as...
Simon, from time to time, has made excuses for his behaviours by saying that he has been, to some extent, influenced by beings or spirits from outside of himself. This is a man who offers to remove demons and jinn from entirely invaded people. These such people are in the most vulnerable category. And here is a man charging £50 for half an hour of his time who seems almost as vulnerable as those that come to him in hopes. Is that from what I have observed, Simon is working magical acts from a pathological and narcissistic mentality. This means that he is incapable of taking personal responsibility for his actions and words. Who knows if and when he will stop his activities, or for that matter, how long he's been conducting unacceptable abuses on the astral psychic level.
They're carnivorous. They are not friendly to mankind, at least the ones that are here.
Are you saying carnivorous?
Their preference is children. You know, and we've been told you shouldn't talk about that. You know, there other people say, well, you better not talk about the reptilians. Well, you know, bull. You know, why not? These children were food. And I'm supposed to just shut up and not say anything about it because people don't want to hear it? That's tough. That's tough.
Aside from the carnivorous aspect to the Alpha Draconians, why else are they dangerous to humanity?
Because they don't like us.
And what are they willing to do with humanity?
Eat us.
I got another offer to go and work in Washington, D.C. Apartment had been made ready. Even the 9 cats were told. They actually said, you can bring the 9 cats. And they laid out what it was, and they said, you're going to work for GCHQ, and then GCHQ will hand you over to the CIA, and you're going to work for the CIA.
I looked at a lot of different things when it comes to Simon, but I did get to sort of get my teeth into the case a bit.
We realised that these people were the 2 people that Simon had taken to court.
And because they missed these major deadlines, that was the real kick, really, as to why they, you know, really lost the case on a technicality.